Welcome, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way with me, April Yee, on Transformation Talk Radio. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care. I'm here to support you in getting out of your own way. So what does getting in your own way look like? Well, how about letting other people define your value and worth, ignoring your body by not taking care of yourself, and people-pleasing? These are just a few ways I've gotten in my own way. In this show, I'll share new perspectives on self-care practices so you can discover options and choices for expanding what's possible for you and your life. In each episode, I have questions for you, and when you take the time to answer them, they'll help in building up your belief about yourself. I believe that when we get good with ourselves, we get good with our lives and the world. Get Out of Your Own Way starts now. Hi, everyone. You are listening to Get Out of Your Own Way on Transformation Talk Radio, episode 17. The concepts I talk about in each episode are things I wish I learned sooner to support myself and get out of my own way. So I hope these ideas are coming to you when you need them. For today's episode, I have the third of several guests visiting the podcast, and each of my guests, like all of us, have gotten in their own way in some aspect of their lives, and they've figured out how to get out of their own way with support, resources, and wisdom that they've gained along their journey. And since this podcast is called Get Out of Your Own Way, I'll be asking my guests, how have you gotten in your own way, and how did you learn to get out of your own way? And we'll be hearing from them and their stories, and you might even recognize yourself in what they share. So today I'm happy to have Chris Johnson join me. And I met Chris through a program at Stanford called T Group, which is an introductory weekend program that introduces the concept of a T group for a class that they have at Stanford called Interpersonal Dynamics. And we all self-selected to be in this group. And it was kind of like an uncomfortable situation because we were all strangers. There were, I think, 12 of us and 2 facilitators. And we just kind of got thrown into it by talking about things that might be uncomfortable for people to talk about, but it's a way for everyone who participates to learn how to communicate with authenticity and to kind of recognize what their emotions are when we're interacting with other people. So it was a really interesting experience, and Chris and I stayed in touch through that. And now we're working together. He started a nonprofit, which I'll be talking about in a second, and I'm working with him in his nonprofit. So I'll read Chris's bio now. Chris Johnson is the executive director of Sharp Circle and Success Stories program. Chris has engineered powerful transformations in his life, going from someone who was sentenced by the state of California to spend the rest of his life in prison to someone whom 15 years later has been recognized by the Secretary of CDCR as a changed person who would be an asset to his community. Chris has spent meaningful time studying and looking within to create a more desirable and fulfilling external reality. He's moved beyond the limiting decisions and circumstances of the past towards a limitless future where he gets to determine the results. With his degrees in behavioral sciences and business, Chris has a solid foundation from which to build, and he has exhibited the skills and qualities he offers to others. Chris is a leader and has shown up for himself and for others in powerful ways, cultivating inclusive leadership vision, strong, authentic communication, unwavering faith while pursuing goals, and a deep understanding of people's perspectives. Chris created Sharp Circle to provide empowering mentorship, consulting, and investment to move others towards their goals with certainty, care, and accountability. He knows how valuable diverse perspectives and lived experiences are, and he sees the power in sharing these resources with others in need so they can freely add their unique value to the world. So, hi, Chris.
Hi, April.
Before we get into the main question, I'll be asking, how did you decide to do what you're doing today, being the executive director of 2 nonprofits?
It was the only way to get the ideas out of my head and into the world. circumstances kind of dictated that it went that way. I asked for other people um, to be involved, and they had particular fears and things like this, and I just didn't want to miss an opportunity, so I just pretty much jumped in it. You were there.
For
you
part of
know,
it.
yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Success Stories program and Sharp Circle?
Sure. Yeah. Success Stories is an organization that was founded inside a prison. It was me and a group of people would meet on a regular basis and discuss a lot of ideas that we saw as obstacles towards our eventual success and also the root causes for us to be incarcerated in the first place. And so we would have these empowering conversations, leveraging the credibility we had through lived experience to try to unlock some new considerations in people, try to create some insights and leverage it towards action. And we were successful in doing that. CNN ended up doing a documentary on our group. I shot away from the camera a lot, but it was a fun space to really be in authentic connection with people that I saw as like my brothers to really discuss to take the energy that you have when you're incarcerated and you can't apply it towards family, friends, and all the other things that come with freedom, and to really try to like analyze who we were and really take ownership of who we're going to be. Sharp Circle was the byproduct of just me dreaming of having, raising up an only child and not really having somebody that was like an invested role model that was safe to talk to, somebody that would not be afraid of my ideas or come with too much judgment or projection. I always believed in the potential of every single person. It just was a matter of unlocking it. Some of the ideas that we see like in Marvel movies where, the person go through a lot of stress and then this superpower emerges. I was like, well, always trying to figure out what my superpower was and knew the ingredients and the things that could have probably unlocked it. And it just really wasn't existing. And instead of waiting for somebody to come and do it for me, I was like, I'm going to try to do it and do it for others too. So that's the birthplace of Sharp Circle.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I like the analogy with the superhero movies because it's like there's this term called post traumatic growth. Like we've probably heard of post traumatic stress, but you mentioned like through stressful situations, you have this potential for transformation. And it sounds like that's what you have. I mean, I know that's what you have done. So I like that finding your superpower through post traumatic growth.
So I like that. I got to write that down. I would write it down right now, but we're recording this.
I can remind you about it later. Okay, so from those experiences, is that how you learn? Like, how did you used to get in your own way, and how did you learn to get out of your own way?
Um, just trying to find a way to balance humility with the realization that you're special. So a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of looking without to tell me what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of second guessing who I am. And so, it was really easy to put on the idea that I was my own worst enemy, like growing up and getting into trouble and things like that. And but if that is possible, then the idea that you could be your own best friend is also possible. And it's like, what does that even look like? And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it was just, exposing myself to other wisdom that came from the Bible, wisdom that came from the Quran, wisdom that came from just people that have walked in life longer than I have. Just listening and wrestling with that and just actually implementing, which is not a consistent thing, but implementing the things that I had conviction over. So if I did hear or read something that I did have conviction and believe, when the opportunity came, I had to like have the courage to actually apply it and stand on it. And as I continuously did that, I felt like, well, this is what it might be like to be your own best friend. Because if you do have a best friend, they're kind of like going through life with you. So like there's a different maturity level. Your best friend when you're 8 is different than your best friend when you're 12, even if it's the same person. And so it's kind of like a growing together. It's like, well, if we learn a thing, let's try to apply it and like talk well to ourselves. Let's act like we care about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And just apply what we know and understand that we don't know everything so we could have that humility but also take ownership of our unique and special qualities that we know exist in us, but not to say that other people aren't special as well. But we owe the world to reveal and apply our specialties and to own it and not have imposter syndrome about it. Even if we're like we lose people every day and it seems like human life is like very fragile and ubiquitous, but that doesn't mean that it's not unique and precious. And when we just go with the flow, sometimes it's not helpful for anybody. So just knowing when to go with the flow, and then also knowing when to really act on the ideas that might only be ricocheting in your head, and not to be insecure and shameful and have shame about them, but to say, you know what, I think we should go this way. And here's why. Yeah, it was a dream I had. And yeah, I read this weird book. And however I got to this insight, I think it will work. And let's try it, or whatever.
And so, what would happen if people don't reveal their uniqueness or specialness?
We'll never know what we lose. We'll have no idea. We'll never know what we lose by people that don't unlock or become to that level of freedom, or who we lose early in life or whatever. We have no idea. But I do know that all the things that make this world full of like meaning for human beings, and all the things that solve all the ideas that generate the solutions for our biggest problems, they come from the imaginations of people. It's not technology. It's not something outside of us. It's literally our ability to imagine and create. So every mind that we lose to self-imposed, restrictions or externally imposed restrictions, we all suffer the detriment, and we cannot just because we cannot articulate, specify that's particular loss that we have, it doesn't mean that it's not a grave and enormous. Humanity will unlock. To me, I believe that another mind at some point will unlock it, but like, how long could that take? You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Do you mean like in the past where someone created, someone's mind created the wheel, created fire, created the internet? There's going to be someone else who creates something that we're not even aware of that could help us or support us in our humanity or
It's
civilization.
like it's all like there's all these micro contributions that like add to the experiences that we have. And yeah, absolutely. We're so much alike in a lot of ways. We feel, we see, or whatever. For the most part, even if you can't see, you could hear, and even if you can't hear and you can't see, you could touch. Like we have a lot of connections to our humanity. So a lot of problems are similar. But yeah, like and mind you, it doesn't even have to be something enormous like creating fire or a wheel. It could be the idea of a song, and just that song when you're like singing it in the shower by yourself. It's like, well, if somebody was to produce it, if you were to get it out there, that song might inspire other people to create a thing. We're all
Mm-hmm.
dependent on each other for inspiration
Mm-hmm.
and survival. And inspiration is so important. Inspiration is so important for us to
Yeah.
get to the place. Like if I had to be out in the field, like planting my vegetables and all day long, then I wouldn't have that moment where I'm just sitting on the couch bored as hell, going through my imagination, and then that idea pops in, and I'm like, oh, that would be cool, and then I do it. So thank goodness for people being able to not enable me to sit on my couch, and you know what I'm saying? Like maybe that's like a crude way of saying it, but you get what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to something we were talking about recently, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like if you're struggling with the basic needs of survival, like physical needs, then you won't have that space to um, have space to like think for higher than those physical needs.
in most cases, sometimes, like, I'll be honest with you, like I've been incredibly hungry at times, and I've been incredibly
Mm,
cold. I've been incredibly lonely, incredibly um, just fearful of the future. And dope ideas came from that. So
mm,
the human ingenuity is like, it's just the brain cannot be constrained even by starvation.
mm,
To be honest with you, so like yes, has Maslow's hierarchy of needs is important to unlock people. I wouldn't say, well, let's just make a lot of pain for people so they can generate. But the spirit of human beings is it cannot be dominated by human beings. It just can't.
mhm,
That's to put us in a position of some authority that we really don't have. My goal is just to respect that spirit and to do it due diligence by letting it have free flow through me, and then encouraging that free flow through other people, whether we're in pain or comfort. But I do recognize what you're saying. Maslow's hierarchy is a place to start for me in my human hands to like, hey, maybe we should create, everybody should have these base needs,
mm.
or recognize that might be an obstacle towards them, being more pro-social or whatever the case may be. But by no means do I think beautiful things come from the most crazy situations, and I think that's what diamonds and gems are like a
Mm,
metaphor for that, right?
mhm.
You would think that much pressure and that much heat would destroy a thing. And it's like, actually transform me into the most hard, beautiful thing in existence, right? So,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Well, going back to how you used to get in your own ways. So you mentioned like not um, like second guessing yourself, having imposter syndrome, not like wanting to express your uniqueness or specialness because of some fear of how that might be perceived by other people, maybe. Like, how did you, and you mentioned you gained some wisdom and knowledge from like reading the Bible, the Quran, like talking to other people who shared their wisdom. Like, what did it look like for you in your life when you were getting in your own way?
It looked like um, kind of like a zombie, right? You're just like motivated by this external thing to drive, and you use that to justify all kinds of terrible behavior
Mm,
that that when you're sitting alone, you're ultimately not proud of or fulfilled by. So I had a very fixed mindset before. Um, and so it was just like a waiting for something to trigger me to step into the special thing. And so I blamed whoever it was or whatever savior was supposed to come and do that. It was like, well, when? When are you going to
mm,
do this? In the meantime, I'm just going to be a crazy bastard. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. I was taking no ownership of my life at all, like none.
mm,
Um, so yeah, it looked like not taking advantage of opportunities. It took like being afraid to stretch into new knowledge. It looked like having to the exhausting effort of pretending like you know what you're doing in your life, pretending like you have it all together when you don't. And then being deathly afraid of like, if somebody does see me, then all these terrible things will happen. I'll be disposed of. They'll throw me away. They'll find out I'm worthless and all these types of things.
mm,
So it looked like starting new jobs. And then when they became like when they started giving me more opportunities to do the thing, which required me learning, I would quit.
mm,
And I would just bounce to another one where I could be this great first impression person.
mm,
And then when it came down to proving my metal, it was like the effort and the pressure means that I'm taking the risk of you seeing that I'm really stupid, disposable, don't know what I'm doing, and that means that I'm worthless to society. The
mm,
fact of the matter is, like me telling people I don't know what I'm doing, actually, people responded to that with investment. Like, oh, okay, I'll show you. Like, just come over here, and I'm like, oh, well, damn. And so, like, once that happened, there's a book by Schopenhauer, The Wisdom of Life and Counsels and Maxims, which is hilarious to me, even though he talked really bad about black people, but it was still
mm,
funny. And he was like, just his perspectives was enlightening me. So he talked about having a sensitive mind where you could look at grass and pull the lessons out. And so like it's not just the Bible and the Quran. I'm watching Disney movies and all that. And I'm getting like wisdom from everything.
yeah.
So yeah, but it looked like blaming, it looked like victim mindset, it looked like looking for reasons to justify why you are instead of reasons to propel you towards who you could be. That's what it looked like on a daily basis.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that, what you said, waiting for someone to come save you from your life. Because it's like when when we think that our lives are not great and we're thinking like, well, it should be something else or someone else to make it great. But it's actually up to us to save ourselves. And I think that some people don't like that idea because it's like it takes a lot of work. It's hard. It can actually be really painful. It takes a lot of energy and effort to be able to take ownership and responsibility for your life. So a lot of people would prefer to like outsource that to other things. And then they wonder why it's like they blame their circumstances for where they are right now. But it's like it's them who aren't taking ownership over their lives and like taking action that is aligned with what they want. So like how did you decide that that's what you had to do?
Change for me had to be less painful than staying the same, right? So
Mm,
very, very painful to get sentenced to 65 years, to realize that you hurt people, which just realizing that, like before I would justify myself by how I got into prison, but after I, started to gain this wisdom and the empathy started to grow, it really hurt me in my mind to know that I had done this and this was the mark I was leaving on the world. And then to
mm,
also be in prison for 65 years was like hella painful. And so like staying the same I wasn't gonna make it. And so
mm,
that's what ended up happening for me. So like yeah, that is true that like it could be painful to change, but it could be way more painful to stay the same. And I've lived both lives and I'm telling you, changing way easier. It's difficult in the beginning, but like man, it is super painful to be letting yourself down every single day. and be
Ooh.
carrying these like lies in your head and be arguing with people and to justify your loneliness and to say like the cynicism is just like super, super painful. It's nihilistic. It generates suicidal ideations and
Mhm.
yeah.
I do know that there are people who have told me, I am miserable right now, but it's familiar and it just seems so hard to like be different and to change. And so people justify that too by like having their lives stay the same. And it's like because they're so familiar with misery, they would prefer that over, considering what's possible for themselves and reaching for that.
And I got empathy for what I do, but it's very hard. It takes a lot of energy to maintain that level of consistency to stay miserable because people crash into your life. And when they crash into your life, they could be watching TV, a new show comes out. It's going to create this cognitive dissonance that's going to require you a lot of effort. It's going to require a lot of effort on our part to stay the same. Like
Hmm.
you could be at the laundromat, or you're gonna be getting on the bus, or you're gonna get a phone call, or you're gonna have a stomach ache and go to the doctor. And like that's how it happened with me. Like life will crash into you, and you better go for the full. If you try to hold the earth still, you're just gonna get dizzy because it's going to spin. You might
Yeah.
as well just let that thing spin while you're on it and figure out the rhythm. But I have empathy for that. I have empathy for that. Um, I've not seen anybody be able to do that long term, and by long term, I mean like a lifetime.
Mhm.
Just not reality. Uh,
Yeah. And so, you mentioned how you got sentenced to 65 years and what happened was that you got out after 15 years. So like what did you do to help you move towards that?
I just tried to shine. Um, I was like, if I'm gonna stay alive in here, I'm gonna still change and become this new person, and I'm gonna like implement wherever I can. I'm going to try to, um, you know, implement the ideas that I'm learning about myself. I'm gonna be that type of person in the community. I'm going to try to be a leader however I can in here, and eventually people took notice of that and recommended me, and eventually, the Secretary of California identified me as somebody that would be an asset to the community. I was one of like 126 people out of like 130, 120,000 at the time. So it's really,
Mm,
really cool. They're doing a lot more now. But and then of course I went to court and the judge said, I don't give a damn how good he's been doing in prison. I think things that he's done are terrible. So he sent me back to prison. And I was in prison for a year. And then the CDCR let me go to board. The prison system let me go to board because they're like, the court's not going to let you go. We're pretty much, we see you every single day. And so I gave them accountability, let them know like my level of transformation, let them know that I understand the impact of my decisions. And also gave them the play by play of how I turned into a new person. And then
mm,
the proof is in the pudding and how I've been acting. And they said that let's see what it does in the community. And I've been out 3 years and I don't think I think they've had great return on their investment. And I think I've done a great job with Liberty, not to toot my own horn, but that judge is absolutely wrong. And all of society, everybody that I work with would not be receiving the benefits of my shine had the judge got his way and he thought he was going to be doing a service for the community and he wasn't. But I
mm.
understand his jadism, but I'm just glad that he didn't have the power to dictate my future.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like what you said earlier about how with if the judge was right, we would have lost all of this knowledge and wisdom and leadership and vision that you're bringing to everyone that you're working with now.
Me and others. And so I advocate on behalf of them and I try to encourage people to, people can say like, well, this is who I am. And it's like, that's when they're living in all their vices, but they could also be their virtuous self too. And it's like, I'm gonna grace you out for your vices, man, but you got to get back on the path. And because we have a duty, and so um, I know some really dope people, and like almost everybody I talk to is dope, especially when we get some healing going on and some integrity cracking. We end up doing some really, really beautiful things. I get to meet people like you at Stanford. You know what I'm saying? And um, be proud of ourselves and the things that we're doing on the planet. Which
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and
yes,
you
let's not lose people. Let's get them out.
yeah. And you talk about like how you read things or learned or heard things and then you started implementing ideas. Like I think it's so easy to be able to just consume these things and like to know these things intellectually, but like what to actually implement them, that takes energy and effort. So like how did you decide that you wanted to implement them instead of just know these things?
Like here's the humility. Like it wasn't really with me. Like I just kept reading the corner or talking and having these small conversations. You get invited to things. And then my courage was like accepting the invitation to lead a group or be a facilitator or have a discussion. And then when that starts happening, it just creates this vacuum that's pulling you in to more and more and more responsibility. And then you just have to dictate like how you're going to show up in it. So it's a lot of providence, a lot of community, and a lot of individual courage together really did it.
And it sounds like a lot of vulnerability too. How did you learn that?
Well, I learned that non-vulnerability was like cowardice. I was like, oh, dude. And just reading these philosophy, these guys, these people just tell you, call it straight. Bell hooks would just call you out on some cowardice stuff. And you're just like, okay, hold on. I thought it was a hard, okay. Let me go ahead and say what I'm really thinking, God forbid. And then you learn that your whole world doesn't collapse and you kind of get used to it. And then you realize that other people are similar. And it's like, oh, damn, we're all like really the same.
Mm.
So I know I received a lot of grace in my life. I'll be damned if I don't give it to other people. And so that's just like how it goes. Yeah, vulnerability is the most courageous thing I've ever done, but it also gives me the most confidence I've ever had. Not courageous to be doing things that hurt people, not courageous to be acting like you don't feel. It's not courageous to, it's courageous to find out how to work with the full contradictory spectrum of your humanity.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the homework that's given to like every baby, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. So just to kind of wrap up a little, knowing what you know now, what advice or support would you tell your past self who was struggling regarding getting in your own way?
Oh, you're worthy. You're worth it. I love you, and you can love yourself and find out what love is. And you're okay. You're not flawed. You're okay. And let's go. Let's go.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's so powerful. And I totally relate to I mean, all of what you said. And I actually recently shared in an email that I sent out to my audience about how this revelatory truth about how I am okay. I have always been okay, and I will always be okay. Because I don't think I believed that before that truth came to me in therapy. So I think that's just really important to start with. It's like, I'm okay. Like, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me, even though maybe for some reason society or the world maybe reflects that in some way to me. But if I can believe that I'm okay, then I can move forward. Yeah.
Things that you thought were broken were actually the things that actually you become most proud of because you counteract them with this other thing. Thank God I have low self-esteem because now I can relate to people that have low self-esteem, right?
I mean, I think so many of us do, and it doesn't come inherently or innately, right? We learn that. So we have to unlearn that. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to share that the documentary that you mentioned in the show notes, and I'll share Sharp Circle's website in the show notes too. Is there anything else that you want to share so people can like connect with you or learn more about you?
Yeah, don't judge me by the website, please. I'm actually doing a lot of work in in the street. We are real. Feel free to reach out and have a conversation and see what we can create together. If you have good ideas, let's talk about them. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. And so thank you so much, Chris, for being here today and sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And thanks to those of you listening. I'm so glad you joined me for this episode of Get Out of Your Own Way. To go even deeper, join me for Self-Care Sundays, monthly drop-in sessions. You can find out more at thehealingmodalities.com. You can also sign up for my weekly Self-Care Seeds newsletter there. And join me again for Get Out of Your Own Way every other Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central, and 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. Next time on Get Out of Your Own Way, I'll be having another guest join me to talk about how they've gotten in and out of their own way. And until next time, have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. You have been listening to Get Out of Your Own Way. Get out of your way and get what you want through transformative self-care with me, April Yee. Tune in every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. In each episode, I present you questions that support you in building up your beliefs about yourself. To connect with me or for more information, you can email me at thehealingmodalities@gmail.com or visit my website, thehealingmodalities.com. See you soon.